to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 Take Action Success Coach and Strategist, empowering, educating, inspiring, and igniting people like you to take action with jet propulsion. We assist people to find and embrace their life purpose, live their highest vision, become the next best version of themselves, forging that strong foundation so that you're able to soar to success. For more information about how to work with myself and my team, please visit us at ldcstrategies.com, and we would love to hear from you. Now, our goal here, of course, on Healthy Lifestyle is to empower minds, educate hearts, inspire action, and ignite success, so you could choose to have a fulfilled, healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life, to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. Our concept here at Healthy Lifestyle is to introduce you to various people that I actually have access to, and various modalities and things that you may or may not be aware of, so you can kind of put your toe in the water to see if it's something you're interested in, and then reach out to them to get more information and to really soar to success. So welcome to the show. I hope you're having a great day. I know I am. And we're going to give you some verbal caffeine to light you up with possibilities, because today on our show, we have the great, wonderful Susan Gatti. She's from DisruptiveSparks.com, as she's a top business advisor specializing in growth strategies for service first leaders and companies, and the #1 teachers and leaders in companies. She leads fast-moving brands around the world to build best-in-class reputations. Susan turned her system for successful goal achievement into the Disruptive Spark Method. And this proven process reduces the predictable resistance that does appear in times of stress, stretch, and change, and fuels results. Love, love, love this. And currently, Susan is a partner at a boutique management consultant firm called Disruptive Spark Group, who specialize in review growth, profitability, brand loyalty, and creative, financial, insurance, and banking sectors. Welcome to the show, Susan. I love this.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Coach Lorianne. It is such a pleasure and an honor. So thank you.
Oh gosh, it's an honor and pleasure to have you here too. So I love what you do. Obviously, it's along the same lines of what I do, but yet very different. And
Yeah.
you're very, very focused. And I love that it's Disruptive Spark. I love the name of your company, and that's what attracted me originally. And then I heard you speak, and I was like, oh my God, super wizard. Love this woman. Need her in my life. And so I wanted to introduce you to our listeners, because I really need them to focus on the simple principles. So let's just start, really at the beginning of, why does it seem so easy for some people to speak out, and others it's just terrifying? And, I'm one of those people similar to you. It's like, okay, not a big deal. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. But other people are they get rigor mortis. I work with a lot of them, and I'm like, why? It's okay. Nothing's going to happen. I promise you, you're safe. So why do you think? Like, what's
Oh
your...
my goodness. I don't think I know. It is it's I always love to say it's not logical. So there's not a logical solution, right? It does make a lot of sense to just be able to say, it's okay, you're fine. I can do this, you can do this too. And the truth is that for about 10% of the population, that's true. Now, the reason I believe that the majority of the people who are out in front sharing are actually sort of the fortunate few that actually don't feel the effects of their biology telling them that this is actually dangerous and unsafe. Now, the thing I'm going to slightly disagree with you is that I am actually one of those people. So I go like silent. So when I get nervous, when I'm challenging myself to be out on camera, to be out in front, it's not natural or comfortable for me. And I think the reason I ended up coming and creating Disruptive Spark is because I had to learn how to do that. And I came from a corporate background where I ran corporate universities. So I did training in everything for big companies, small companies around the world. And all of my training was very informational based, right? It was very logical, very steps, very action oriented. And I could never quite understand why training didn't always have the best reputation, right? It's not really known for affecting or creating change. It's known for educating people. And it was through my own process of what was actually in the way of me showing up and being comfortable, not just pretending, because a lot of people do show up and pretend. I was a pretender. And actually getting to the space where you could feel comfortable and confident to do it.
Yeah, I was a pretender too.
Oh, yeah.
To be very clear, I consider myself very shy, and I know people who know me are like, "What? How is that even possible?"
Same.
So
Same.
shy. I have to force myself. I would rather be in my PJs in my house, doing stuff that I love in my house, doing one-on-one things, doing things with my family, than doing some of the things that I have to force myself out of the house to do. But here's the difference. I take that risk. I put myself into uncomfortable situations, not dangerous situations, uncomfortable, but uncomfortable situations for me in order for me to grow. And I know that I'm growing because I'm uncomfortable. But do I get rigor mortis? Yeah. Do I get nervous? Absolutely. Is it courageous every time I do it? Yeah, I high five myself because I'm like, okay, girl, you just did that. And every time it gets a little bit easier, just a little bit easier. But it doesn't mean I don't have the nerves. Matter of fact, true story, share with you, Susan, and everybody else. I go out one day and I'm waiting to get introduced, and all of a sudden I'm not feeling nervous. And I'm like, oh, all right, maybe I finally got there where I don't feel nervous. Well, don't you know, when I went out on stage, completely blanked out. I was
That's so common.
completely went blank. I had no idea where I was. Thankfully, I was on stage with a friendly who was just like, I'm not used to that look on her face. So let me jump in here. And she gave me a couple of things to start me and roll me back in. And I was like, okay. And then I was back on track. But for that moment that seemed like hours, I was absolutely terrified. I had rigor mortis set in. Like I couldn't.
Yes.
It was terrifying. But
Yep.
again, I surround myself with people that I know will, if that ever happened. But ever since then, if I don't get nervous, it makes me nervous. So
well,
and having
if
those,
we get a chance today, I can teach you a couple of techniques that I use for myself. I teach to all of my clients. I incorporate it into every program I create because this is just so common, even when you're experienced, because it's not logical, it's biological. And I want to explain that. And I think there's a great study that people can turn to. And I think professional athletes are a great group to look at, right?
Yeah.
So this study was done by Whoop, which is a performance watch company, right? And they spent a whole season with Patrick Mahomes, who, if you don't know, is a world class. Yep, world class. I'm blanking on his position. A world class.
He's a quarterback.
Thank you.
One of my favorites.
Arguably is in one of the most dangerous situations. Very high pressure, very high stress. And what happens biologically is we trip those alarms that happen unconsciously in our body that says you're in danger, protect yourself. And protect ourselves looks different for different people. I can go two places. One is that freeze, right? Where it is, I truly can't move. I just truly can't move. You just experience that yourself as well. And something has to physically trigger you. That's where the disruption comes from, right? Like something has to actually move you out of that. When you're in that state, you actually can't do it for yourself. So the first thing I want everyone to just give themselves a little grace for is if you end up in a freeze moment, has nothing to do with your intelligence, has nothing to do with how much you know, has nothing to do with how much you prepared. And there's not a lot you can do for yourself.
It's
So
because
you're
our
so
brain
smart.
can't differentiate between
No,
actual fear and thought.
no,
It
exactly.
cannot differentiate. So it takes it as, our bodies take it as the same thing. So if a bear's running at me, or I think a bear is running at me, doesn't matter. My brain
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it happened 20 years ago or this second. It stays, our body reacts to that. So that's why we're conditioned. So you're going to show us how to compensate for that and how to I get like my heart's in my throat and all I can hear is my heart pounding. And that's when I know
that's the warning signal. So that is kind of the first place I tell people to go. So without getting too technical and what happens from a chemical release standpoint, it's all triggered through your heart. So when your heart escalates, what your heart is doing is signaling to the rest of the body, you have to prepare everything to take our natural progression. For some people, that's the freeze. For some people, it's the over, right? If you like people that are in hyper states, a lot of times this happens to me a lot on sales presentations because I'm always nervous in that particular capacity. And so I'll over talk, I'll over explain, I'll say too much. It's almost frenetic.
I used to do that too.
Yes, these things are so common.
These are
I
all
do a lot of
yep.
I do a lot of sales enablement training, and anyone out there in a sales capacity in any way, you are probably missing 25%. Like you could increase 25% simply by learning how to recognize your internal signals and turn them off. So that's the heart of what we do in this particular part of the practice, because it's the heart rate that's either, whatever it's doing, and it's sending all the signals, and the signals could be, we know that two common ones, fight or flight. There's also the freeze, right? And then there's also a new one. I think this is fascinating. This is new in the research, and I think we'll start to hear a lot more about it. But it's actually the term is called fawning. So if you ever find yourself like fangirling or like really almost getting obsessed with someone, following them online, listening to everything, reading all of their books, like getting caught up in whatever their movement is all about, that's an actual coping mechanism. It's a way to align yourself to someone else. And it has served you somewhere in your life. So there's actually 4 things now that we've scientifically proven can happen. People like Patrick Mahomes, here's the cool thing, right? People like Patrick Mahomes, when they did the study on him and he wore a heart monitor through a whole season, and so this was predictable in the most stressful part of his job, right? Dropping back into the pocket, big, strong men are coming after me. I'm reading things down the field. Do I have to run? Do I have to write? Any normal person would simply cave underneath that amount of stress and pressure. Do you want to know what happens to his heart rate?
Well, he's so stable. Like he doesn't even, it's almost as if he doesn't even see those tanks coming at him.
He doesn't. He's not perceiving that at all.
Yeah.
He's not perceiving that at all. The word I'm going to use is desensitized himself to that.
Right.
And so what happens on and this is like through EKG, we're actually monitoring this. Not only does his heart rate not accelerate, it actually decelerates. And when you slow your internal self down, you get into your most strategic, your most creative, your most powerful place where you can actually, a lot of times you'll hear words like quantum leap or have incredible feats, right? Or show up and shine in a way that you're like, where did that even come from? I didn't even know that was in me. Simply learning how to regulate your own heart rate is the key to everything. Isn't that incredible?
It's incredible. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I always watch him. So when I'm watching him do that, because I'm aware of the study as well. And so
Yes.
I just started because I wasn't a huge football fan. Now I am. But watching him is just such a lesson because I'm watching these tanks running at him and he's standing there going, okay, where am I going to throw the ball?
He's got all day.
He's
Yep.
he as if he has all day.
As
And
if he
it
has
is
all
just
day.
totally it's intriguing to me to be able to
Yeah.
have that self-control, especially at his young age, because he's young at his
He's
young
young.
age.
Mhm.
And
So
no
it has nothing,
disrespect
it
to
has
that.
nothing to do with age. It has
Nope.
nothing to do with your religion, where you were born, how
Right.
much money you have. None of those things factor into there. There's kind of 3 things that factor in there. One is just like how you were born, like how your biology is wired. So,
Right.
and that you can look at your own family, right? What's happening in your family, you can probably get a good indication for what's happening for you.
Right.
And then there are certain situations in life. So if you've been in a particular traumatic event, in some way, shape, or form, that can actually alter how you experience and perceive things at a very deep level. And then there are just situational moments. So I think we can all attribute to what it's like to be new in a job versus established in a job. So when you expand your comfort, that's what we talk. Like I always tell people, I don't want you to ever leave your comfort zone. I understand the wisdom and I understand the advice, but it's bad advice because the second you leave your comfort zone, you're now in unfamiliar territory and your body will always respond as programmed.
Well, I will take second to that because I believe
Yeah.
that you should not be in your comfort zone because you're growing, but you need to understand yourself enough to be comfortable. I'm more comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense, so that
Yes.
you don't trigger me. So there's a difference. We're saying
Yeah.
the same thing without, so we're comfortable enough is what you're saying, I believe. You're comfortable enough that you can step into this new area and know enough about yourself to be able to take the impact. I watch to use Patrick Mahomes. I watch Patrick Mahomes get sacked. He got hurt. They hurt him. His leg was hurt already. They hurt him. I saw him hesitate, and I saw there was for the first time this hesitation with him. And then something happened, which you're going to show us. Something
Hmm.
happened, and then all of a sudden that hesitation was put aside. Like it was almost like, yes, I understand. Wait. I'm being irrational right now. I'm going to go back over here and get in control and be comfortable in where I am because I'm going to take back my control from that. Because right now I'm working on the fact that I just got hurt. And when he realigned himself, he was back on track. And I
Exactly.
actually watched him do it. I didn't understand at the time what he was doing, and that's what made me do the research. I was like, okay,
Hmm.
there's something
You're
here
like,
going.
wait a minute, what just happened
There's
here?
something
Yeah.
here
Like,
going
and
on.
athletes are like that. Like they're
Yes,
conditioned, right? So you train yourself to do anything. And to your point, your best growth is just on the outside of your, so there's the comfort
yes,
zone, there's the familiar zone, and there's the possible zone. So what we advocate for is how big can you make your familiar zone? So,
yeah,
right, he already had his familiar zone is like here. Most
yeah,
of us live in a familiar zone that's this big.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I
small.
want to change that word. Most of us, our comfort zone is this big. The reason you're so comfortable taking exponential actions is because your comfort zone is probably this big. Maybe it's even this big. So you have a lot of space to move around before you hit that first layer. And I love the word you use. We call that uncertainty. That's the first indication that a body will hesitate, and you saw it. And it took something beyond his from like the place that he made himself. So one of the first things someone can do is how big can you make your circle?
Yeah,
How big, how comfortable can you be all the time? And then how good can you get at recognizing when you've hit what I call a little bit more of the familiar zone where something is not totally unknown, but it's not actually comfortable and it is setting off some alarms and that's the sweet spot, right? When you can read that,
yeah,
you can then, I love the word you use, realign. I would use stop and release. So that's how I think about it. Because remember, it's a chemical reaction. It's
yeah.
not me personally. It's just a chemical reaction. And I can be in command of that chemical reaction. I can stop it. I can release all the residue. Remember, that's key.
Yes.
And then so I can get back into a space where I'm thinking properly. Now I'm back into my logical, just space. And you can learn to flip yourself just like that.
Yeah,
So
and
like
it
as a
does.
good coach, I'm sure you do that for your clients all the time. They don't even know what you're doing for them. But that you're stopping it and you're helping them move through it. That's what a really good coach does.
Yeah, we do. I do what's called it's hit the switch. It's you got to hit the switch. So hit this,
Yeah.
which means you're stopping everything. You're
Yep.
recognizing, you're taking a breath, you're hitting a pause button, call it whatever you want. But you're
Yeah.
stopping, you're taking a breath and recognizing what's going on. And you can do it if you do it often and you practice at it, you could do it at a turn of a dime. Now, it used to take me weeks. And then
Exactly. Yes.
and it took me a week, and then it took me days, and then it took me hours, and now I could do it on a dime because I know that it's coming and I know what I need to do. Because again, the question you have to ask yourself is what's the worst that can happen? You're not in danger. What is the worst thing that can happen at this point? Do you want to take it? Do you have the capacity? Is this what you want to do? When you start asking yourself questions and you're literally just taking your brain going someplace else, which changes your chemical balance. So there's other ways to do it, but yeah, we do
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
I
Without a
love,
doubt. And you're just giving some great tools. Like we should have a lot of different tools in our
yeah.
toolkit. I'm focusing in on just the one to your point. So how do you stop it? And how do you get to the point where you recognize it? Well, I use my body as like the best way to say it is like a tuning fork. So I've gotten very in tune and very aligned to my own body rhythm
Right.
so that I can recognize when I'm kind of outside my wheelhouse, right? And something's happening so that I can do exactly what you were talking about. So that's what I'd love to share with you how to do.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is you're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We have Susan Gatti here with us today, disruptivespark.com. Love it, love it, love it. We're going to take a short break and we're going to come back and you're going to teach us how to do that. Give us one of those tools so we can put it in our tool belt. And just everyone remember that everyone's ability is different. It's your own. So give yourself grace. It's not, it's not something you're going to learn overnight. I promise you, you're not going to learn it overnight. But if you keep in the game, you're going to be able to do that, switch it on the dime, especially with Susan here. She's going to help us do it in the next segment. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to do that. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 Take Action Success Coach and Strategist. If you would like to be a guest, lift up your business, product, or not-for-profit, or if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. Our team is here. We'd love to speak with you, and we love your ideas. You know that because we've had guests on because of you, and we really do appreciate you listening to us and following us and sharing us with your friends and family. With that said, I want to jump back in with Susan Gatti. She's from DisruptiveSpark.com. Just amazing conversation about decompression strategies, emotional regulations. We started talking about some of the tools that we can implement and give people. You have 4 resilient practices. What are those practices?
Great question. So, how do you do things that you want to do? You have to have the skill and you have to build the muscle memory. You have to have the confidence. But the third thing is there's just always natural resistance. Remember, it's your body's protection. And so we know that building resilience is how you build these practices. You were already giving some of the great techniques that you use with your clients. So we have them under 4 headings. One is energy management. So that's the biological aspect. What's the chemical makeup running through your body? Because that's actually what controls movement. It's kind of like a little funny to think of it that way. We think movement is conscious. It's not. It's unconscious. And it's really a process in the body. So energy management. Yeah, it's just you're actually telling your body what to do. This is kind of cool because we often think we're the victim or we're not in control. Or actually, we are telling our body what to do. So if you don't like what your body's doing, we call it be the CEO of you. We teach you how to tell your body how to show up and support you, and it really helps people to feel very empowered and to do really big things.
Yeah, I love the energy management. I liken it to being on the top of the hill. And if you start rolling down that hill, like the car starts rolling down the hill, at what point do you think you have the most control of stopping that rolling, that exponential speeding? Well, it's obviously as far at the top as possible, because once you're at the bottom, oof, you're full in. So, and I know in the past I've had, where my heartbeat is just pounding out of my chest and the whole 9 yards, and it is gone, and there's no way I can pull it back. And I know that when it starts, I have to stop it as soon as possible and change that energy to your point, that energy management. But you got to stop that exponential roll. So because it will
Exactly.
it will
And Lorianne, I'll tell you the opposite is true. So if you're ever wondering why you can't get moving, like I sometimes like we really want to do something and we just can't seem to do it. It's the same principle. There's a chemical reaction going on that your body is telling your mind it's not safe. Don't. So even when we want to, if you still can't, that's a pretty good indication that your mind and your body, I like to call this mind body alignment, they're not communicating well with each other.
Yeah, they're
And
not
that's
playing
in
nice.
your power. That's in your power to change it. You're actually a very powerful person. People never give themselves enough credit for how powerful they
And
are.
it's really cool when you're out of alignment, you feel that discomfort. And then when you bring it back in, and that's what we mean by alignment, by the way, we
Yeah.
throw these terms around and everybody's like, oh,
Yeah.
everybody knows what alignment is. But that's what it is when you're out of sorts with yourself, you're out of alignment,
Yeah.
right? But when you bring
Yep.
it back in and you jump that hurdle, the total elation is just amazing. It's mind blowing
Mhm.
how exciting it is. And you never forget that feeling ever, ever, ever. And
It's
you
so
want to
true.
recreate it. You want to create it.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And so we'll do the practices for that, but that's a kind of a base one. I love for people to explore that. The other one that's kind of on the opposite side of that, but same premise, is just this idea of being emotionally agile. So in corporations, which is where I spend my time, we've been teaching emotional intelligence for years, but we teach it very logically. Emotions are not logic. They're reactions to whatever your body is experiencing. The coolest thing we ever did was we found a scale that actually predicts, it's a predictive scale that will show you your level of, in work we call it productivity, based on your current emotional state. So the heavier the emotion, the less the productivity. The
Sure.
lighter the emotion, the more productivity. And so can you again like do that cycle through, like what is your emotional level? Do you go high? Do you go low? How do you get in command of your emotion? Is all about emotional agility. So
Yeah.
those two things work really nicely hand in hand.
Yeah. I love that.
Usually
So,
one, if you work on one, it kind of also lightens up the other because they're kind of doing the same thing just from two different directions.
yeah.
And then the other two pillars, I love these because these are the more cognitive ones. And these are a lot more of the techniques that you were talking about. So there's two sides to this. One is something that we call personal agency. And this is a belief structure within you that says, how much do I believe that I am worthy or valuable in this particular situation?
Yes.
And that flexes for people. It shows up a lot in negotiating salaries. It shows up a lot in being able to talk about, like, if you go into a job performance review and you feel a little unable to kind of speak, about your achievements, or you don't even think your achievements are that much to talk about, that's usually an indication of, something that has told you that you're not as valuable as you could be. So personal agency is a great way to explore your own beliefs,
Yeah.
which are all unconscious. And almost, here's the craziest thing, they were pretty much set in you by the time you were about 6 or 7. And
Yeah.
unless there was some sort of event, right, you just simply have been acting in accordance. So that's a huge one. And then the other one is workplace adaptability. And this one is really interesting to look at because this is how easy is it for you to ask for resources and support. So, how often, right, are we figuring everything out on our own, taking on all the responsibility, unsure, unnervous, or feel like it's not even possible for us to ask for help or support in some way? We're so used to relying on just ourselves that we've forgotten our voice and how to ask and how to be open to receive. So those two kind of work hand in hand. And there's a lot of good strategies that are very cognitive focused that help people to really expand that. And again, like if your comfort zone is here, this is how much room you have to move. So if you are someone that, something new comes up at work and you're like, no way, no how, I'm not doing that. Like your comfort zone around exploring that is just very small.
Right.
And you can get into some really simple cognitive practices that just even this much space can add 10, if not 20% of productivity to a single person. So imagine that compounded in an organization simply by talking your own point of view, sharing your own point of view. That's what that one is all about.
Yeah, and I think, I think a lot of people put into their heads that asking for help or support is a weakness or showing that they don't know what they're doing, or they look at it as a weakness or a vulnerability. And I will tell you, sit in your vulnerabilities. They're fabulous. They're there for a purpose.
And
They're
I got to tell you,
learn
one of
it.
the things that work people hire me for often is, and high achievers, they never want anyone to know that they don't know how to do something.
Of
So
course.
they get a new job, big promotion, and instead of leaning into the organization and getting all their tools and resources from the organization, they come pay out of pocket to find me because they don't want their work to know they don't know something. So that is a really, so, we help them get them what they need because they're smart enough to go get what they need, but we also empower them to be able to ask and go find the resources in their organization. So listen, it's a great thing wherever you're getting your help from, but a lot of times we are investing outside of work when work actually has what we need. We just don't even know how to ask for it,
Yeah.
or we have, or we've asked in the past and haven't gotten it. And once that's happened to you, you're not going to do it again. So, there's good reasons for everything that we do. So just remind yourself of that. Whatever you're doing, there's a good reason for
Well,
it.
and that's a good reason, another good reason to have a coach, have someone like yourself, have someone like
Exactly.
yourself standing next to you, because we remind you of these good reasons, and then we give you the tools to allow you to jump what I call jumping the hurdle. You jump the hurdle. It may
Exactly.
not even be a hurdle. In a lot of cases, they're not even hurdles, that you actually could just step over the threshold because that's how little it is. But it seems like a mountain when you're sitting there trying to tackle
Yeah.
it, because you haven't had
Yeah.
that support before, and you're left there
Exactly.
of your own powers, and you may not have those tools. And asking for help is really, really,
Very
especially
vulnerable.
very, very vulnerable, is asking for help. And I
Hmm.
think it's a great thing. Asking for directions. I'm like, start by asking for directions, and then we can work from there. And I don't
I
mean
know.
to minimize it, but it really does.
But it really is true. And it's just muscle memory, right?
Yeah,
Like you just have to learn the new path and then commit it to muscle memory. So it's automatic. 95% of our actions every day are on autopilot.
yeah,
And we couldn't survive without that. Like, it's very, listen, our bodies are geniuses. They know how to help us. And so, but whatever's been programmed in is just simply how you do. We just changed the program. I jokingly say I one time spent, I'm always willing to invest in myself. I invest a lot of money. I hire a lot of coaches. I go to a lot of trainings. I'm the better for it every time I do it. But this one, I probably invested about $40,000 over 2 years. And I'm like, here's my takeaway. All I needed to do was say, I don't know how to do that. Like, that was literally the upshot of a
yeah,
$40,000 2 year investment. If I just would have been able to say, I don't know how to do that. And now that I can say that, it's life changing. It's
yeah,
life changing
yeah.
that I can show up anytime, anywhere and go, oh, I don't know how to do that. Can you show
And
me?
not feel diminished.
And not feel diminished. As a matter
That's
of
the
fact, every
key.
time I say it, I realize I get even more powerful.
Yes.
So I say it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. And like I say, we have good, bad, and ugly. It's like I make mistakes every day. Making mistakes is not a bad thing. As much as we might have grown up, our society says mistakes bad. Don't do that.
Yeah.
No, mistake. That's how we learn. We learn from our
Yeah.
mistakes. So mistakes,
Total agreement.
if we learn from them. It's when
Yeah.
we're not, and we keep repeating it over and over again. Universe, God, source will redeliver it until you learn it. So I
Yeah.
suggest, after having theoretical truck rolled over me and backed over me because I wasn't paying attention to these notices. Now I pay really strict attention to it because
Can
I like to get it at the whisper and the nudge, not being run over
and
by the bus.
can I share with you and your viewers how to actually help that go away?
Yes, let's do this.
So this is pretty incredible. So there's something in music called hertz, which is a frequency.
Yeah, 520.
And when you're young, okay, stay with me on this one. When you're young, up until about the age of 6 or 7, your brainwave state is very different. It's in what's called a theta state, which means you're very open, you're very receptive because you have to be. Your body's always working for you. So that's how you absorb, like, that's how young children grow so quickly. The reason we always thought adults had a fixed mindset is because once you hit 7 and beyond, all the way up until about 2021, that closes, and your brave wave state changes. So you're actually not as pliable, you're not as receptive. And so the how to change that is through certain music. So if you get Hertz music that is at about 500-600 is a really good number. So all of my training has music behind it for a reason, because when you're at that 500-600 level, it actually shifts you into a different brave brainwave state, and you become more receptive. So again, don't beat yourself up if you feel like you've learned the lesson the hard way over and over and over again. Your brain is just set up to be that way. So if you want to give yourself a competitive advantage, like I start every morning with a 5-minute, very specialized, that I purchased for myself, music that is set to a certain frequency that allows me to either whatever I want to do that day. Do I need to ground my energy? Do I want to, like today, I knew I was going to be speaking. I had 3 speaking appointments. So the one I listened to this morning was about opening up my throat chakra.
Sure.
And in just that 5 minutes, I call that grounding. I call that decompression. I start every morning with some sort of decompression activity. And I'm going to show you the simplest one. And again, like back to the beginning, everything starts with your heart. So if people love weighted blankets, those are really popular right now. The reason those things are so helpful is they stop the escalation. So whenever I feel myself getting nervous, and I listen for my signals, I talk too much or I don't talk at all. Other signals in my body are, for me, I'll feel it in my stomach. For some people, they'll feel it in their back of their neck, in their lower back. Sometimes yours presents as a migraine. Whatever you're feeling in your body is pretty much your signal that this is uncomfortable for me. And the second I feel that, my hand, 2 hands sometimes right over my heart. And I'll do this in meetings. I'll do this in presentations. Sometimes I'll just stand here like this. Nobody knows what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing. I'm I'm stopping my body from sending the signal that we're in danger. And then here's the easiest thing to do. Exhale. Because remember, if you're feeling it already, you've started a chemical reaction. So this may stop it, but there's residual left in you. Exhale is how you remove it. So simply, if you're with me, I'm going to invite you to take one hand, left or right, doesn't matter, put it and add just a little weight to it. And I want you to, do you feel a difference? And then if you take your breath and simply use your shoulders, because my shoulders end up here at my neck, right at my ears. And I go, and Coach Lorianne, you even said it, you need a 2-second pause. And that 2 seconds, I've stopped the reaction, I've released the chemical, and I'm now back in my logical brain where I can make a logical decision. How simple is that?
It's very simple. It's very simple. There's actually a breathing technique for meditation as well, where
Yes.
you bring it in through your nose in a count of 6, you hold it for 2,
Yeah.
and you exhale out of your mouth as much as you can at a count of 8. And if you do that 3 times up to 5, you will actually relax your body. Whether
Yes.
you're not intending to or not, your body will relax. And again, like you said, your heart rate bringing down, like the monks do, they bring the heart rate down, and then the external forces don't bother them. They've sat out in snow and not had snow protection on, as we would look at it. They don't even feel it, and they're actually sending out heat because their body has actually contracted down to a lower level. That allows our decision-making process to be clearer. So clarity comes in.
This is how we develop strategic leaders. Like when people say, I want to be a strategic leader, being a strategic, you probably already are. What you haven't learned how to tap into is that relaxed, reduced state. And we live in a society now that that's almost never possible. Your technology, all this multitasking, how frenetic a pace of our lives, our kids are in activities, we're in activity, like we're so hyper stimulated that a lot of people that when they come to me, especially high achievers, are used to doing a lot. right? Like you don't become successful by accident. And usually there's a very hard work ethic in there, which is a really good thing because it does get you where you want to go, but it knocks you out of regulation. And a lot of times people don't even know what it feels like to be regulated. So if you're one of those people out there saying, Susan, I can't meditate, I can't relax, I know you can't. I'm not even asking you to do that. You have to start by simply learning how to stop and exhale.
Yeah.
Stop and exhale. Another is easy thing, like every single morning, sometimes I'll just wake up and I'll take my hands. I'm going to describe it. I always start with them over my heart because the second my eyes pop open, I'm already worried about my day. So I'm already jacking it up,
Starting to
right?
spiral.
Already on that wheel. So I start every morning. For me, I'm a religious person. I believe in saying a prayer. Prayers are similar to chanting. They are chanting. That's why prayers feel so healing. You don't even have to be religious. But any sort of phrase that you want to say over and over and over again as a mantra, with your hand on your heart, that's how I regulate myself every
Yeah.
single morning. You
Yeah.
don't need a big, huge practice. You just need to get into the habit and the routine. And then for me, it's always the exhaling. And then from there, Lori, I can start to do practices like you're talking about. But I was really unregulated. Like I burn hot and I run fast. And I didn't, I don't sit, I don't know how to sit, right? And I literally had to learn how to just be
Yeah. And
before I
that's
could even get into like other practices that allow me to expand. And I
yes.
think that's true of a lot of high performers.
100%, 100%. I know in my high performers and in the people that I work with, same kind of thing is they don't know how to do it slow. And I have high performers who are still high performers who are not working at that crazy space anymore because they're more productive during the time that they're working, but they're working less hours because they're more productive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about just
Yeah.
feeling
So if
out.
you're one of those people that get a lot done and you start to regulate yourself, you're going to be amazed at
Yes.
how, here's what people say, a couple of things. All of a sudden their work feels easier. They're like, I don't know, Susan, it's magic. What do you do? Like, I'm like, it's not magic. You're just regulated. This is how you were supposed to be. We just have forgotten. We've lost touch with that. Other things that they'll say is, you know what? I'm much better at delegating
Yeah.
because things don't bother me as much. I'm like, I'm okay a little bit more with things not being perfect. Most high achievers are really uncomfortable and really get knocked off by small imperfections.
Yeah, without a doubt. Oh my gosh,
So,
I need to have you back on the show. I can't believe our time is up because it's just
oh
so
no, there was
informative.
another one I wanted to
Go
do.
ahead, give me one more real quick.
I was going to say, so once you've regulated, then I want you to bring in new energy. So when you do the exhale, I want you to think about, and I'm sitting with my feet on the floor because this is a little bit of a grounding. When you do that exhale, I want you to think about blowing a light all the way down through your legs and pushing everything that's in you out through the bottom of your feet. And when I think about this, mine is sparkly and it's kind of like a gold color and it goes down into the earth and it roots me down. And you know what immediately happens? My pelvis comes in, my chest comes up, and now all of a sudden I'm powerful.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then from there, we bring it up and out the top. And that little bit of a practice is how you become incredibly powerful without being threatening.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh,
So
this
more to
is
come with that.
more to come. You need to come back. This is crazy. We didn't have enough time, but thank you so much for being here today. You are
Thank you for letting me come.
you have a book out there that they can get from your website, which is disruptivespark.com. It's called Getting Comfy and Confident Showing Up on Social Media. I believe social media is put into effect to keep us busy so that we don't ground ourselves and be as successful. So I'm going to ask you to take a little less time, put yourself out on social media, but don't spend a lot of time surfing it.
Exactly.
That's not healthy. And I do really, really, truly want to have you back, Susan. You are a gift. Please visit her at
Thank you.
spark.com.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all for being here today. Thank you for joining us on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we earned the privilege of your time. And you had one more thing that you wanted to say real quick?
I was just going to say, I do have some of these practices also that are through my Unstoppable Success Guide. So for your audience and your audience only, I can actually give them a link to download a free copy. And then you get a couple of these practices so you can kind of play around and play with this on your own.
We'll drop it in. We'll drop
We'll
it
drop it in the
episode.
link. Yes.
Absolutely,
Yep.
in the link, and we'll drop your link to your website. And you also have this quiz that's awesome to help really understand where you are.
Yeah. So we do this in workplaces. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to have. You're going to come back next month. That's it. I already decided.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. Look for our show next Saturday at 3 p.m. on JPC Broadcasting and, of course, iHeartRadio. We can also be found on all major platforms, and we would be so grateful if you please like, follow, share, and subscribe. Please take a moment to join our Take Action community where you can interact with like-minded individuals and have access to tools, giveaway challenges, and other yummies, like maybe having guest appearances like Susan come on and into our community. Until next time, I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 Take Action success coach and strategies. Let your dreams be bigger than your fears, and please let your life be filled with joy. Until next time, make it a good one. Take care.